Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh. Welcome to Unit 4, Week 5, focused on Genre Study 3, Poetry. This week, we will read and analyze 5 poems about responsibility, forgiveness, and caring for others. We'll explore what makes poetry different, how the speaker's point of view shapes the message, and how poets use sound devices and figurative language. This week's poems feature characters who make mistakes, choose their words carelessly, or must decide how to help others. We will examine how poets use their speakers' voices to explore the important theme of responsibility. Now let's talk about the genre itself, poetry. Poetry is a form of writing that uses carefully chosen words to express ideas, feelings, and experiences. Unlike prose, which is organized in sentences and paragraphs, poetry is arranged in lines and stanzas. Poetry often uses sound devices like rhythm, rhyme, repetition, and alliteration. It uses figurative language to create vivid images in the reader's mind. But perhaps most importantly, poetry is meant to be read aloud. The sounds of the words matter just as much as the meanings. Here is a key idea to hold on to. In poetry, every single word is chosen very carefully. A poet might spend a long time deciding whether to use the word cold or the word icy. Those words feel different. They create a different picture and a different emotion. When we read poems this week, we are going to slow down and pay close attention to the words the poets chose, and ask ourselves, why this word? A line is a single row of words in a poem. This is different from prose, where a sentence runs until it is grammatically complete. In poetry, a line does not have to be a complete sentence. The poet decides where to break the line, and that decision changes how the reader experiences the poem. A stanza is a group of lines, like a paragraph in an essay. There is a blank line between stanzas. Stanzas help organize the poem's ideas and create rhythm. An example, "Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, and so cold," is one complete thought. One stanza, one apology. And here is something very important for when we discuss poems. There is a difference between the poet and the speaker. The poet is the author, the person who wrote the poem. The speaker is the voice we hear inside the poem. They are not always the same person. This week we will read 2 types of poetry, free verse and narrative. Free verse poetry has no fixed rhyme scheme and no set meter. It sounds like natural, everyday speech. The poet chooses where lines break to create a particular effect, rather than following a pattern. Narrative poetry tells a story in poem form. It has characters, a setting, a conflict, and a resolution, just like a story in prose. It can be written in free verse or with rhyme. Here is an important point. A poem can be both things at once. The poems were read on Friday, Hey Nilda, and Hi Rachel, are free verse and narrative. They tell the story of a friendship in crisis, and they do it using the natural language of text messages. As you read, ask yourself, what story is this poem telling? Who are the characters? What is the conflict? How is it resolved? Now let's talk about 2 sound devices you will hear and see all week, alliteration and assonance. Alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sound at the beginning of words that are close together. Look at the example, slipping silently past you in the hall. That repeated S sound feels sneaky and quiet. It perfectly matches how Rachel is avoiding Nilda. The sound creates the feeling. Assonance is the repetition of the same vowel sound within a group of words. Look at the example, crying or trying to hide. Listen to that repeated long I sound, crying, trying, hide. That sound feels stretched and painful. It creates a mood of sadness and secrecy. Here is why these devices matter. They add a musical quality to poetry, and they draw our attention to the most important feelings and ideas. Today, in Poem Study Day 2, we are using the Wonders book, our anchor text, 3 connected poems. The first is, This is Just to Say, by William Carlos Williams. The second and third are To Mrs. Garcia in the Office and To Thomas by Joyce Sidman. Before we read, here is important background information about how today's 3 poems are connected. This is Just to Say was written by William Carlos Williams in 1934. It is one of the most famous short poems in American literature. Decades later, a poet named Joyce Sidman read that poem and was inspired by it. She wrote 2 response poems using the same title structure, To Mrs. Garcia and To Thomas. Her poems were inspired by a student in her class who had gotten into trouble for a similar kind of small-scale mischief. This is something poets do. They respond to each other, build on each other's ideas, and create a conversation across time. Poem 1. This is Just to Say, by William Carlos Williams. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, and so cold. Poem 2. To Mrs. Garcia in the Office, by Joyce Sidman. I have stolen the jelly donuts that were in the teachers' lounge, and which you were probably saving for teachers. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, and so gloppy. Too bad, the powdered sugar spilled all over my shirt and gave me away. Poem 3. To Thomas, is Mrs. Garcia's reply. Thank you for your poem. You do have a way with you, Thomas. Smiling, asking me how I'm doing today, talking a mile a minute. Slipping in and out? Yes, I see you. Stealing our hearts, and our donuts too. A nice boy like you can, really, get on in the world, if he doesn't let his fingers run away with him. Of course I forgive you, but I still have to call your mother, by Mrs. Garcia, in the Office. Voice is the expression of a speaker's personality through word choice. When we read a poem and feel like we know who this person is, their personality, their feelings, how they think, that is voice at work. And this is just to say, the speaker's voice is serious, direct, and genuine. The apology is simple and straightforward. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox. No excuses, no blame shifting, just a plain statement of what happened. Then the speaker adds, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. He knew those plums were being saved, and he ate them anyway. The last stanza, forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold, is where the voice gets interesting. The speaker is sorry, but he also cannot help admitting that the plums were wonderful. Is this a sincere apology? Or is it playful? The voice is complex, honest about both the guilt and the pleasure. The speaker does not pretend he did not enjoy the plums. That complexity is what makes this poem famous. A real, honest apology does not pretend the temptation was not real. Now let's compare the voice of the speaker in Williams's poem to the voice of Thomas in Sidman's poem. Both speakers are apologizing. Both admit they did something wrong. Both gave in to temptation. But their voices are very different. The speaker in This Is Just to Say is serious and direct as mentioned. Thomas in Sidman's poem sounds entirely different. His voice is playful and mischievous. He does not seem particularly troubled by what he did. He is charming, energetic, and a little bit proud. Is Thomas sorry? He says he is, but his voice does not carry the weight of guilt. It carries the lightness of someone who got caught doing something fun. Here is the literary insight. The same theme, giving in to temptation and asking for forgiveness, feels completely different depending on the voice of the speaker. This is why voice matters. It tells us not just what happened, but who this person is. Poem 3. To Thomas. Mrs. Garcia's perspective is the most complex. She is an adult responding to a child she genuinely likes. Her point of view is warm and forgiving, but still firm. Look at her key lines. You do have a way with you. She likes him. Stealing our hearts and donuts. She can see the humor in the situation. Of course I forgive you, but I still have to call your mother. Forgiveness and consequences are not opposites. Both can be true at the same time. Now, compare the point of view in Poem 1 and Poem 2. Think about how the voice or personality of each speaker helps you compare the poems. Identify specific language that helps you understand each voice, and write your answers in your notebook. Take a moment to pause the video to answer all questions. Remember to write the heading before you start. Consider the speaker's perspective in Poem 3, To Thomas. Analyze how the poet's word choices help you understand Mrs. Garcia's viewpoint and her response to Thomas. Cite at least 2 pieces of text evidence to support your observations in your notebook. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka atubu ilayk. Glory be to you, O Allah, and all praise. I bear witness that there is no God but you. I seek your forgiveness and turn to you in repentance.